So today we have Mr. Jonathan Chow. He is a year 2 computer science student in SMU. Among some of his achievements include working for a year at a web development company called Zen, studying briefly in Australia, and he has a keen interest in algorithms, machine learning, and just computer science in general. He's a self-proclaimed geek. He's a self-proclaimed geek, and he is proud of it. He's one of the few people that's proud to be a geek. Actually, myself included, I'm a little bit of a geek myself. So
What's wrong with being a geek? I love being a geek.
yes, there's nothing wrong. Hashtag Geek Lives Matters. So if you need if you need a member in your hackathon team, please hit him up. I will link his Telegram or whatever, Instagram, whatever gram, link in the description. So welcome today, Jonathan.
Hi, happy to be here, and I love how after 3 years of being together, you can only name two things of me that you felt was noteworthy to include in my biography.
Yeah, and one of it was Australia. Yeah, so we. So, do you want to give your own little version of something that you want to say to the audience about yourself, or?
Basically, to the people listening, I am a year 2 computer science student. I have extensive experience in development, um, which I will elaborate a little bit later. I worked at for close to a year at a alternative investment firm called Zen Technologies as a junior developer. Then after that, I went over to a Mumbai-based company and served as the lead developer there, working to build basically an e-commerce platform. So like as my resume reflects, I am very much entangled in the world of development. However, I have recently made strides to learn a little bit more about artificial intelligence and cybersecurity, especially through this computer science degree that I'm currently taking, majoring in exactly that, artificial intelligence and cybersecurity. So it's kind of like right now I'm in the middle of it's not a big transition, but a pseudo transition from development to that of AI and cybersecurity. And I think it's really, really fun. Like the whole tech industry is really, really cool. And yeah, I love science and I love tech. Yeah.
All right.
A little bit of a weak ending there, but
coming
there
from
you go.
coming from a self-proclaimed geek, so what with all that in mind, what actually compelled you to join the tech industry in the first place? Was it something of was it in a specific event, or maybe you grew up with your parents teaching you how to code, or
Actually, it's very weird because like my family is very, very business based. In fact, my dad got quite pissed at me for changing from a business major to I was studying as a Bachelor of Commerce student at the University of Sydney for about 2 years prior to me coming over and studying here at SMU as a Bachelor of Science, Computer Science. Um, and that transition was very weird because, like, when you decide that you don't want to do something, right? And I decided that I definitely I didn't want to do finance and commerce. Then you're left with the question, if not this, then what? So I was basically just randomly doing things, various things. I tested myself. I tried to be a chemical engineer. Oh my god, chemistry is so tough. Um,
tougher than coding?
actually, it is. Like you have to learn about quarks and like. Do you know that inside an atom there are more things, and inside those smaller little things they are called protons and electrons. They're even smaller things, and like and it's said that even below the quark level there are even more things, and like it's so layered and nested, and it's really, really cool in that way. And each one provides a view of a world in 2D, but in actuality the world is actually in 3D.
Wow.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I love layers of abstraction, and if you do, you will love computer science too.
So that's the parallel between chemical engineering and computer science.
Yeah,
actually.
like both industries have a lot of layers of abstraction.
That's very interesting. And honestly, I don't think that because I'm studying psychology, so I don't think I would be I would be that good in either one of these. Like, in fact, you tried to teach me coding. In fact,
Oh my god,
Jonathan,
that was an experience.
yes, that was an experience for myself as well. In fact, Jonathan tried to teach me Python, and it was fascinating, but it was also mind blowing in a way that it literally blows your mind. Like, it blows it up and makes you have a headache for the next hour after trying to learn booleans and arrays and what if statements. Just the basics of Python.
No, but honestly, like when I first started studying coding, I actually had headaches on a daily basis, and I actually view these headaches as good things because I felt like the more headaches you have, the more like you're actually working your brain muscles, and and I basically had headaches on a daily basis, and I actually have like I went to Malaysia and bought over 100 tablets of Panadol in bulk so that I could bring it back to Singapore, so that it would be cheaper for me to eat 2 tablets a day on a daily basis because that's basically my coffee, and
Did you have any trouble with at the customs? Like,
no,
oh, this guy.
nobody
don't
gives a
worry,
shit about
officer.
Panadol.
It's just Panadol officer. It's just like 1,000 pallets or tablets of Panadol.
No, it's only 100,
Oh,
but
it's like-
no, but it's actually really cool. Yeah, I think that coding is a completely new mental framework, and it really takes a while to learn the mental framework that is coding. But once you know one language, you know all various language unless it's OOP. But um, because it's just the same thing with a different syntax. It's just the same thing in a different language. Yeah.
Is that something that is very fascinating to you, to yourself, and that's why you kind of really love coding?
Kind of like, okay, so if you think about the English language and the Chinese, like English and Chinese, right? Because I'm bilingual in both English and Chinese. Like there is no real parallel between both languages. You cannot say that I am a boy and then 我是男孩子, right? 我是一个男孩子 or whatever bullshit, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
there is
whatever
no
bullshit.
there is no exact parallel between both of it, and like the grammar is different, the rules are different. But the interesting thing about the computer science language is that the grammar is the same. The words are different, but the grammar is the same, and there are exact parallels for various vocabulary. Like if an if-else statement, like if I were to say I am a boy, it will be basically the same thing in Chinese with the exact same number of words, but just with different word representations for each part. So like the various languages in computer language is very, very similar, unlike the languages, natural languages, as computer science students actually call real languages in real life.
That's very fascinating. So in a sense, there's a little bit of a lesser barrier of entry once you master one, so you can. It's
Yeah.
much easier for you to master another. Unlike the natural languages, if I learn Spanish, that would help me in other things like Chinese. It's totally different.
Yeah. That's why the main question I get asked by my juniors or people who are just asking me for general advice in general is what language should I learn, right? Especially when they are first entering. And for me, I would just say two things. Firstly, it doesn't really matter. And even if it matters, it's not about what language you want to learn, but what you want to do with the language, right? So like if you want to create an artificial intelligence bot, you might want to learn Python. If you want to create a website, you might want to learn JavaScript, right? It's very, very different based on what you actually want to do.
Yeah, that is true. It's like kind of like which country you want to live in, then you learn the language.
Yeah.
So, is there a specific event that you mentioned that you really hated commerce in Australia? So, what made you want to choose? What led you to the choice of learning computer studies? Do you
Sorry, I
have
don't understand the question.
do you have like a specific train of thought that led you to this, or is it just a fascination of being fascinated with different languages, programming languages?
No, I was never really fascinated with programming languages. I think that the whole reason why I landed in computer science, as I mentioned earlier, is because I had no choice but to choose something other than commerce. And in so doing, like I fell in love with computer science. Like it was just one of the options that I explored. I explored chemical engineering. I explored biochemical engineering. I explored a lot of science languages, but I explored accountancy, even marketing. And in the end, none of these actually excited me as creating my very, very first algorithm, which was a tic-tac-toe algorithm. And it was really, really cool because like you get to see and you get to create stuff. I think it's the process of creation and the fact that I turned out to be good at it that made me actually like computer science.
So in the big five personality traits, you are one that's high in openness, which has aspects of creativity, and you will
Okay,
want
cool.
to. Would it be accurate if I say that you want to become like Elon Musk and maybe one day impact the world in a really in a significant way?
Okay, just to the audience out there, this is completely my friend Yu Hong's psychoanalysis of myself, which happens a lot of time whenever we are together. But I would say that's a fairly okay statement. I wouldn't say I want to be like Elon Musk, but I actually look up to Elon Musk as a couple of he together with Steve Jobs kind of like show me what's possible in the world of tech, and I think that they have kind of changed the world of tech quite a bit, and I kind of respect their commitment to this industry.
So now that you have mentioned that Elon Musk has changed the world of tech, how do you think is the current state of tech, and what do you think is the future of tech?
Okay, so I think those are very two very different questions.
Mm-hmm.
So the current state of tech is okay to this how do I describe this? So let's just not look at tech as a whole, but let's just look at the frontiers of tech, right?
Mm-hmm.
The frontiers of tech is in three various industries. One is cybersecurity, another one is artificial intelligence, and the third one is in Internet of Things, right? IoT. And so, like in these three different areas, these three are the basically the forefront of tech right now, and I think that as a tech student, you kind of need to choose a speciality. I have chosen cybersecurity as well as artificial intelligence. I'm more well versed in artificial intelligence right now, not that so in the other two. But I think that um, it's pretty cool because if you look into artificial intelligence, you get to do things that we were not able to do before, and there is constantly this debate of whether artificial intelligence is real intelligence, and I like to say that no, it's not. It's just the forefront of what the brain of a computer can basically do for you. Um, but what it can do right now is quite extraordinary. You are able to have a computer see and recognize objects.
Mm-hmm.
You're able to have a computer understand speech patterns, right? So it's really really cool that the computer can do these things now. I don't think that it's even possible to have um, computers have real intelligence, at least not for the next 100 years, um, because even Moore's law is not able to recreate the number of neurons and which will inevitably transfer to the bits and bytes that we have in computer science. Like right now, the amount of intelligence we have is that of like an earthworm, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like we are able to see things, but we are only able to see things in one way. And then when we change our view and perspective, it's completely different. So I think the future of tech is quite curious. Because how do I put this? I believe in the future of robotics. However, I feel like the future of tech lies in how much people trust tech, and it really is something that is quite difficult because there is this constant belief that um, computers are out to get us, which it can be, right? And computers is a source of power, right? So it like what do you
propagated by movies like Terminators and things like that. Basically,
no,
Ex
but actually,
Machina.
it can actually, but some of these concerns are legitimate though.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I like if you go onto Google, they actually store a lot of data on you. I myself have over 110 gigabytes of data stored on me. One person, they save 110 gigabytes on me, and that's crazy, right? They save all the audio recordings whenever I say, "Hey Google, do this for me." They actually save all those recordings of me.
Wow.
and and like that is power, right? Data is power, but at the same time, data is not power because we use in artificial intelligence we use the general to predict the individual. So you can either be part of the general or you can be the individual, right? And and if you are part of the general that predicts the individual, like you're not being predicted, and therefore there is no reason why you should protect your data, or at least there's no real reason to. But to use your data for the general also means that they can use your data for the individual. So they can also predict your data if they have your data for general usage of basically creating a trend algorithm thingy.
That is interesting. And there was this one thing that you brought up to me a while back that about this incident in China, right?
Oh yeah,
That
I love this incident.
that gave me nightmares basically. I literally couldn't sleep that night,
Yeah.
and I stayed up until about 3-4 a.m. because of it. Tell us about the incident.
Well, this incident is basically where like you first need to understand that China is a very nation-loving state where people actually believe in their leaders, and they are a little bit more they're less liberal and freedom-seeking as we are, which is which is neither a good nor bad thing. It's a good thing for coders like me, but you know, and what happens is that they actively try to catch you in the act of jaywalking or in all crimes basically through the use of image recognition. So if you jaywalk, or there was this one guy, he's a European dude. He jaywalked, right, and across a road in Shenzhen, which is basically the Silicon Valley of China, and in a couple of in like 30 seconds, he got a message on WeChat, which is a government-owned like messaging system thingy, saying that he got a fine for jaywalking. Just 30 seconds. There is no way a human operator could have done that, right? So it's completely based on image recognition, and they even have like a board of shame, so called, in the middle of the street, showing all the people who have jaywalked in the past hour.
That is absolutely horrifying. It's like a totally like a Big Brother situation where the government is constantly just watching you and just following you just in case you commit a crime or does anything that's against it. That's a really scary situation.
Yeah, but the thing is that you need to think about it, right? Like this is just a tool, right? A tool is basically power, and power only depends on how you wield it. Like in China, they wield it as a big brother system because um, their society allows it to. But in a more liberal country, probably that's not possible, not as possible, at least not in the near future. And so, like, what's going to happen is that they are going to be using this for things like recording your surroundings, recognizing objects. They use image recognition to do, like on Shopee, for example, they use image recognition to classify your products into whether you're selling a shoe or you're selling a passport or whatever bullshit, right? So it can be used for good and can be used for bad. And like, as a computer scientist, your job is not to worry about the politics. It is a little bit a little bit, because you can be you like, who knows, you might be the next Oppenheimer, right? I am become death, the destroyer of worlds. But
He's the dude that invented atomic bombs. Right?
yeah.
Okay, so for the audience who don't know.
So so you can be the next Oppenheimer, but at the same time you can also be the next Edison, right? So it really depends on how your technology actually improves or destroys mankind.
Wow. And do you think we are, as a as a
I
human
think the
being?
scientist never has, like in most situations, the scientist never has a say in how their technology is used. They only have a say in the fact that they invented the technology. It's normally the people in power who actually decides the use of the technology.
So it really is mostly up to the governments around the world.
It might be governments, it might be companies. It really depends. But
Wow, that is.
yeah, I can see that you're gonna have a nightmare tonight as well.
Yeah, I'm a little bit paranoid about such things. But you know what? I have faith in humanity, and we hope that such people would use it for good, especially. And honestly, I have faith in the governments around the world to use these things for good and not for evil. Okay, so that is the current state of tech and the future of tech. So how fast do you think that we can actually advance in this kind of technology? For example, like AI, in 15 years, in 20 years. So right now you said that an AI, the capabilities of an AI is like an earthworm. When do
Mhm.
you think in 10 years, 20 years that these how advanced do you think these AIs will become? This is very interesting.
I like to think about so I'm a computer science engineer
Mm-hmm.
and as a or a student, uh, but as a computer scientist, like I like to think of things in terms of like limiting limitations and things like that. So what's limiting this the growth of artificial intelligence is two things, right? Data storage, as well as the amount of neurons needed to actually simulate a real brain. And if you take a look at the Moore's law graph, Moore's law being the rate of expansion, the rate of computer power increase based on um, like on like every year. So like Moore's law basically states that every 2 years the strength of computers will double,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the problem is that Moore's law is fading. It has not been increasing at that rate ever since I think 2008 or 2000, like somewhere between 2005 2008. They have stopped increasing at that rate
Why?
because the whole like if you take a look at chipsets, right? Like the way that chipsets actually improve is through increasing the sophistication of the chipset, right? And there is only so much that you can increase the sophistication of a chipset before it can no longer be increased in sophistication. And there's also a limit on how machinery can reduce the sizes of the diodes
Mm-hmm.
before it gets too hard or it's just too difficult to manufacture.
Okay.
So I think that Moore's law fading, in essence, uh, kind of is limiting the art of data science. But at the same time, I think that a more important concern is on the growth of technology, and I think that this is actually our biggest concern is that it's humans' fear of technology, and it might be valid, it might not be valid. All I'm saying is that humans' fear of technology is inhibiting the growth of technology because either we we are not allowing it to be, for example, emotional support animals or whatnot. Like for a computer to be actually human, it needs to be autonomous, right? Like it needs to be able to come up to you when you are in a sleep when you're sleeping and say, hey, wake up, it's 9 o'clock and you're about to be late, and to know that if you were to press the snooze button that it should still continue waking you up, right? But not allowing computers that autonomy to do things like that is what or for example, for them to suggest that you are supposed to go to a therapist when you are in a bad mental state and you don't even recognize it yourself, right? Like to be able to do these kind of things is kind of like an invasion of privacy, and people will basically say, no, I don't want to listen to this, right? But like these kind of things is what I think is limiting the growth of AI in general. That together with Moore's law.
Wow. So is AI? actually growing faster or growing slower now?
It's actually growing really really fast right now. It's a rapidly it's a really really new industry. But I think that with all new industries, all fast growing industries fades after about 20 years or so. So I would see the end of a rapid expansion in artificial intelligence in about um, 20 years around there. It started its real growth in 2010.
Wow.
Yeah,
That
but
is
honestly, I think that
really.
robotics is the next step in next gen technology. But then again, like robotics can only be around if like have you seen iRobot?
Yeah.
Yeah, like for us to actually entrust robots with carrying our purses and like buying things from us and to make legal exchanges, we need to respect the autonomy of a robot. And we need to respect that robots will act on their master's behalf and they will never be wrong and they are completely infallible, which is not true. So I can understand why people would object to that system, but at the same time, it's impossible to have that system without the trust in robots. So it's a double prong thing.
Yeah. And there's a lot of morality issues that comes with that as
Yeah,
well. For,
absolutely.
like for example, if the robot commits a crime, who is to blame? Is it the owner of the robot or is it the corporation of the
Yeah,
robot? Or should robots just be allowed to like commit crimes because it has like a fundamental error?
Elon Musk is currently doing a researches into self-driving cars, and his example is the most promising of most companies right now.
Mm-hmm.
And he currently has a 99.3% advantage of a vehicle over a car. Of the AI driving over human driving,
Mm-hmm.
and the machine makes so much less errors than a human. But that one time that the car actually makes that error, is it the machine's fault? And machines make different errors from human beings, and you can say that, oh, a human being could have avoided an accident, but a lot of accidents that humans avoid, um, the machine can avoid. So for example, like humans normally, humans
The
may
machines can avoid it better.
like yeah, kind of like it's like both have their trade-offs, right? Like machines problem lies in, like for example, image recognition. Like if if it sees a ball coming across the street, it will brake because it sees an obstacle, right? But the thing is that a normal human driver will continue driving, right? If they
Mm-hmm.
see a rubber ball coming across the street, they will just continue driving. But that braking caused the cars behind it to crash into it. Is that the dri- is that the fault of the machine? But at the same time, so a human can avoid the accident, right? But at the same time, in most situations where humans would not be able to avoid an accident, like especially when it comes to reaction time, right? A machine is tens or 100 times faster, or being able to see multiple things at the same time and everything. A machine can avoid those kind of mistakes. So it's the mistake that a machine makes because of that a human can avoid. Um, does that outweigh all the mistakes that a machine can avoid that a human can't? This goes into moral issues, but it, this kind of moral issues is what like go like it's quite tough to navigate, especially when it comes to companies like Tesla and stuff like that. And that's why for it to actually be good, for technology like this to actually come out, it needs to be as good as Face ID,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which has a much better chance, which has such a low rate of of it being tricked, so much lower than that of a thumbprint that is actually accepted.
Oh, wow. Because I would imagine thumbprints to be really difficult to be
Yeah.
checked. Because everyone has
It's
unique
over.
voice.
Okay, I don't quote me on this, but I believe that it's 1,000 times more accurate than a thumbprint.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Like, um, once I've taken a module called Technology World Change SMU, and we were discussing about the whole morality of AI. And a major concern is that let's say if I'm a manufacturer of self-driving cars, right? In the event of should I save my driver, that means the owner of the car, or maybe a random old lady that's crossing the road. There is a tendency to save the driver for it, because well, if you want to buy a car, if you're paying money for the product for the car, you wouldn't really want to buy it if it's not going to save you in an accident, isn't it?
Yeah.
So there is the whole problem of marketing and product development that has a tendency to be biased towards the person buying the car, the owner of the car, which kind of makes it a little bit unfair, because in a natural situation, let's say maybe a person driving, he might choose to maybe when and he sees an old lady crossing the road suddenly, and he couldn't avoid hitting her. Maybe he could swerve a little bit to the left or the right, or make a moral judgment by himself. But in this case, you're always gonna save the owner of the car.
True. Just like I love iRobot. They have the 3 laws that cannot be flouted, and I think that this actually makes a interesting baseline for AIs that can actually have a conscience and actually can think for itself. And that is the 3 laws. First law, you can never harm a human being. Second law, never injure. Always listen to a human. And then the third law, to be able to protect itself. But the first law can never, the laws higher in the hierarchy can never be flouted by a law lower in the hierarchy, which is a pretty awesome baseline, I think. And I love iRobot. I'm just fanboying right here.
So so now that we have taken a look at your reason of joining tech and the current state and the hopefully great future about tech, a little bit of a message to our audience. Why would you think that the listeners would want to join maybe computer science or tech in general? What's in it for them?
So I think that to join computer science, you basically need to be a very somebody who like to create, somebody who loves problem solving, and without these mindsets, you might find computer science to be kind of a bore and kind of difficult, right? Because if you don't like creating things, if you like to follow things, that's not how computers work, right? Like, computer science is such a rapidly changing industry that there is no way that you can master anything. There is no way that you can learn anything for reals. In fact, there is a saying in computer science, and that is the main art of coding is Googling. Because you don't...
What?
Yeah, that's true. Because like you don't actually know anything. You just know roughly what it is. Because there is so many things for you to know that you don't actually know what it is, and only when you want to get it, then you Google it.
So like Python?
Yeah, even Python, because I've not used when I first coded Python for the first time in over a year, right? I've coded Python before, but it's my first time in over a year coding Python over like a couple of months ago, and what I did was, for everything that I didn't know, I had to Google. Like, I knew that there was going to be a for loop statement, but I didn't know how to write a for loop statement in Python because I forgot. Yeah. So what I did was I just Googled for loop statement Python, and they showed me how to write a for loop statement, and I just copied it. So it's a lot of Googling, because you will necessarily forget a lot of things just because of the mass of knowledge in computers, in computer science. And it's not about knowing anything. It's not about possessing anything. Like a lot of people like to possess knowledge. It's a lot about thinking on your feet, about being creative, and just having fun. Like, it's, yeah. and you kind of need to think about your end product also. Like, what do you want to actually create? What do you want your creation to do? And like possibly how do you want that creation to change the world, right? Because there is you can create a website, you can create a phone application. Just look at your applications and what you can do with technology right now. You can have people you can have image recognition, you can have voice recognition, you can have a automatic chatbot. So all those are in the area of artificial intelligence. But then you have IoT as well, Internet of Things, which have like electronic doorbells. You can yeah, and things like that. And in cybersecurity, there are basically many ways of accessing things, right? Like between your computer password security to network security, where information is passed over a network like Wi-Fi and stuff like that. So all these things are like, so what do you want to do? So, and from there you have the creative challenge of either fending people off in cybersecurity or trying to act as a white hat hacker, which is basically a fake hacker, to probe into a company's security. Or you can be a developer that builds things, or it can be an AI, an artificial intelligence, machine learning thing that helps creates the brain of something and like allows a machine to see. So yeah.
Wow, that kind of dispel a mysterious veil of computer science and coding. Because I had a, I think this is quite a general stereotype of CS people, that you need to be really really smart. You need to know everything. You need to know so much information to be able to do computer science.
There is a lot of information though. That's why you Google all the time.
But there's just too much to know.
Yeah,
everything.
no sane person will be able to keep all those information. Like that's why I actually hate learning coding in universities, because coding in universities, the way that they teach you is that they give you exams, they give you tests, you have to write notes on the different ways of writing code. And like, to me, why do you need to write notes on the ways to write a coding language? You are going to forget about how to write that coding language in 2 months, right? Having those notes is not going to help you. And the developers of those programs can change the way their syntax looks as well in a couple of years.
And
Right.
they will be useless.
Yeah, like Python. Right now, Python is on version 3. There's Python 1 and there's Python 2. Now it's on Python 3. So if you learn Python now and they come out with a Python 4, like and you wrote a 500 page notes on Python, your 500 page book that you wrote is useless. Because it's more, I believe it's more important to grasp the concept of coding rather than the syntax of coding.
That is true. That is kind of true for a lot of other disciplines as well. Like, for example, my friends from School of Law, I would imagine that they have to memorize every single word of the Singapore Constitution and just memorize every single law that there is. And in fact, they have an open book exam where they can just go look for
Oh
stuff.
my god, no. I've actually studied commercial law and contract law before.
Is it?
And open book exams are the worst.
They are the worst.
They're the worst. Right? Because they expect you to be able to quote everything. But the problem is that you don't actually have the time to search for those quotes.
Oh.
It's
okay.
a 2.5 hour exam. Don't get me wrong. There is a lot of time. It's just that there is just so many questions, and the questions are just so complicated. Open book exams are the worst. I hate open book exams. I scored a 85% in my closed book exam. I only scored around 65 for my open book.
That kind of makes sense. So it's like no. So it's like
No, the
kind
amount of things that they
essentially
can test you, or they assume they can test you in an open book, is so much more. So they'll just test you random shit, and like instead of like in a closed book exam they'll test you 5 chapters. In an open book they'll test you 18 chapters.
Wow. that does sound like a lot of work. So.
How do you want to end this off?
I don't know. Wait, don't worry. I'll cut this off.
Yeah.
So right now we can say whatever we want.
How do you want to end this off?
Okay. So essentially, to be a good programmer, you need to be someone that is creative. You need to be someone that is kind of logical in a sense. Would you agree?
I like to describe code as a maze of logic. So yes.
Someone who is creative, someone who is logical. So if you're listening and you think that, that sounds like me, maybe you can give coding a try, and who knows, you might really love it.
This
And
coming from somebody who completely hates coding, by the way. Yu Hong here really, really hates coding, but I on the other hand loves it, and you have no idea why.
yeah, and you told me about your first project of doing a tic tac toe.
Yeah,
It's I mean I can understand.
you actually did it, right?
No, I didn't do it. You basically did it for me. You did the whole thing for me. I was like, oh okay. I didn't do anything. You just spoon fed me everything. So it's like you told me but I understand like the feeling of creating something that is meaningful and useful.
And you saw me Google a lot as well.
Yeah. I kind of have that same amount of get the same amount of feeling when let's say I can imagine when I do a research for a school project, maybe a psychology school project. For one of my modules was to do an experiment on social psychology. It's that feeling of doing something meaningful and bring contribution to the world that's quite fulfilling to me, I would say. Yeah, and coding would be a perfect way to have that. Just imagine creating an app and then tens of millions of people gonna use it. I mean, that's a really overly optimistic scenario. And actually, most apps they fail, right? I would imagine.
Yeah, but it's really cool to build an app. I would suggest to people who are trying to build a business to start with a website first, then go to apps. The barrier of entry is to for people to adopt an app is much higher.
Alright, so now that we have taken a little bit of an examination into the minds and the world of Jonathan.
Oh my
about
god,
how
that's super cringe, but thanks.
he's a little bit of a geek and proud of it. And how would you like? Do you have any final messages for our audience?
If you are into coding, just try it.
Don't be afraid.
Like a lot of people try to learn coding. I disagree. Don't learn coding. Have fun with it. Build something. Like the worst thing you can do is to actually like memorize everything that you try to do. Just focus on the end product, right? So like so you should start with like, oh, I want to build a tic-tac-toe game or something simpler. I just want to create a to-do list on a website, right? And or something like that. And what you do is that you take one step at a time and then break it down and be like, okay, so how do I even start with coding? What languages do I need, right? And then after that, how do I store my data for the to-do list? How do I get people to input their information on the to-do list, and then how do they delete this information? So like take one step at a time, but always focus on the main goal of building that thing that you want built, and that'll be more fun than memorizing everything.
That sounds like a plan. All right. Thank you, Jonathan, for taking your time to come to our podcast. And unfortunately, this is all the time that we have. Remember to join us next time. Remember to like our YouTube channel, subscribe, like, and comment, and like our Facebook, Instagram. Hit the like button. All right, that's enough shameless self promotion. All right, bye bye.
See ya.